Imagine this for a second. Right now, as you're watching this, somewhere on TikTok, a woman in her late 20s is filming herself in soft lighting, eyes glossy with tears, voice cracking as she explains that rent is too high, groceries are unaffordable, dating is impossible, and she just wishes good men would come back and help carry the load again. She's not the first, she won't be the last. And every single day, another one uploads the exact same script with a different filter. But here's the part that should make you lean in and refuse to click away. For the first time in recorded history, millions of men are watching those videos, hearing those pleas, feeling the pull of everything they were raised to do, and then quietly closing the app, locking the door, and walking away without a single word. No anger, no debate, just peace. And by the time you reach the end of the script, you're going to understand exactly why that silence is louder than any argument the world has ever heard, and why nothing, not tears, not guilt, not threats, not promises, is powerful enough to reverse it. If you know this channel delivers the unfiltered truth with zero apologies, smash that like button right now. Share this with every man who needs to hear it, and subscribe because the red pill content only gets stronger from here. While you're down there, the link to Angry's Crypto Academy is in the description. If you're tired of watching inflation destroy everything you work for, and you finally want to learn how to buy, store, trade, and protect your assets the right way, click that link and get enrolled today. And if these videos are hitting home and keeping you sharp, you can always buy me a Red Bull through the link below. Every can keeps the rage-fueled truth coming. Let me take you back to where this all started, because this didn't happen overnight. This is 50 years in the making. Picture a young boy in the 1970s, raised by a father who was told his entire life that a real man provides, protects, and puts everyone else first. That boy grew up, got married, worked 60-hour weeks, came home to a wife who decided one day that she wasn't happy anymore, took half of everything he owned, took the kids he's now allowed to see twice a month, and then turned around and told the world he was the villain for not understanding her feelings. That boy became a man who watched his own son go through the exact same cycle 25 years later, only this time the courts were even faster, the social media mob was even louder, and the new boyfriend was already living in the house before the divorce papers were dry. That man looked at his grandson and made a promise to himself: never again. Not for him, not for his bloodline. And that promise quietly spread like wildfire through basements, gyms, online forums, and late night phone calls between brothers who were all waking up to the same terrifying realization at the exact same moment. Fast forward to today, and the evidence is everywhere if you have eyes to see it. Every single day, another woman hits record on her phone, and the script is almost identical. The lighting might change, the crying might be more or less dramatic, but the message is always the same. Life got hard. Everything is expensive. Dating apps are brutal. Good men are nowhere to be found. And please, please come back and fix it for us. They call it high value men disappeared. Or where have all the real men gone? Or I just want a masculine provider again. But underneath the pretty filters and the shaky voice is one simple admission: the experiment failed. The great 50-year experiment where women were told they could have it all: career, independence, casual relationships, endless options, no consequences, and men would still line up to pay the tab. That experiment has collapsed under its own weight, and the rubble is piling up on TikTok, 6 videos at a time. And the craziest part, the part that should make every man watching this sit up straight and feel something ancient stirring in his chest, is that men are not yelling back. They're not writing 10-minute rebuttals. They're not flooding the comments with rage. They're just watching, nodding, and continuing to build the quiet, unbreakable lives they always should have had in the first place. They're in the gym at 5 a.m. They're stacking skills. They're stacking crypto. They're traveling with other men. They're eating steak. They cook themselves in apartments they own outright. And they're sleeping 8 hours a night without a single text message argument about where they were, or who they were with. That silence is not weakness. That silence is the sound of millions of men finally winning a war they were never allowed to fight out in the open. Because here's what those crying videos will never admit: men didn't just wake up one day and decide to be selfish. Men were pushed step by step, inch by inch, over half a century until the only sane option left was to walk. It started with being told that chivalry was sexist, then that paying for dinner was patriarchal, then that looking at a woman too long was harassment, then that disagreeing with a woman was mansplaining, then that having boundaries was toxic, then that wanting commitment before intimacy was controlling. Every single thing that used to make a man valuable was relabeled, weaponized, and used to shame him until he either broke and became a walking wallet with no spine, or he woke up and realized the game itself was the problem, not his score. And once a man sees that, once he truly sees it, there is no unseeing it. You can't put the toothpaste back in the tube. You can't unlearn the fact that the same society that told him to man up and provide also told her that she doesn't need a man, while simultaneously making it impossible for her to survive without one. You can't unlearn the fact that every promise modern dating makes to men is a lie wrapped in a filter. Swipe right for connection. But connection now means such 6 months of situationship followed by I'm just not ready for a label. Be vulnerable, but the second you show real emotion, you're either too soft or you're love bombing. Be ambitious, but don't you dare make more money than her or prioritize your purpose over her feelings. Provide, but don't expect loyalty. Protect, but don't be possessive. Lead, but never tell her what to do. It's a maze with no exit designed to keep men running in circles until they're too exhausted to notice they've been robbed blind. But something broke. Something finally snapped, not in anger, but in clarity. Men looked around and realized they were arguing with emotions disguised as logic, negotiating with people who believe their feelings override objective reality, and building their entire future on a foundation of quicksand. And instead of doubling down like every generation before them, this generation did the one thing nobody expected: they stopped playing entirely. They took their ball, went home, and started building a new game with rules that actually make sense. No drama, no ultimatums, no walking on eggshells, no coming home to interrogation, no performative social media relationships, no paying for lifestyles they're not even part of. Just peace, progress, and the kind of deep contentment that only comes when you finally stop setting yourself on fire to keep someone else warm. And now the tears are flowing because the strategy that worked for decades: shame him until he submits, insult him until he overcompensates, guilt him until he apologizes for existing, gaslight him until he questions his own memory. That strategy no longer works when the man is already gone. You can't shame a man who doesn't care what you think of him. You can't guilt a man who no longer feels responsible for your happiness. You can't gaslight a man who trusts his own eyes more than your words. And you definitely can't cry your way back into a life someone has already walked away from without looking back. That's the part that keeps me up at night, not in anger, but in absolute awe. For the first time ever, men have achieved total victory without firing a single shot. No protests, no laws, no marching in the streets. Just millions of individual men making the same quiet decision at the same time. I choose peace over performance. I choose solitude over subjugation. I choose building over begging. And once enough men make that choice, the entire social contract that depended on their involuntary participation collapses like a house of cards in a wind tunnel. Look at the numbers if you want proof. Marriage rates are at all time lows. Birth rates are crashing through the floor. Home ownership among young men is actually rising while young women are being priced out. Men are reporting the highest levels of happiness in decades, while women are reporting record levels of anxiety, depression, and loneliness. The passport bro phenomenon is exploding. Crypto wallets are filling up. Gym memberships are through the roof. Men's only spaces are popping up everywhere. And every single day, another influencer who spent years telling men they were trash is suddenly confused about why none of those trash men want to wife her up and pay her bills anymore. Hey guys, in a world pushing you to own nothing and be happy, crypto is your key to survival. Join Angry's Crypto Academy to master buying, selling, and trading crypto. Make huge profits and safeguard your wealth. Plus, discover the one crypto virtually no one is talking about, poised to create new millionaires in the upcoming bull run. The link is in the description of the video below. Go check it out now. This is what winning looks like when you stop arguing and start building. This is what happens when an entire generation of men finally sees through what the manosphere calls sign language, the endless cycle of shame, insult, guilt, and the need to be right. Women don't argue to find truth, they argue to win and to feel validated. And once a man understands that basic reality, he stops debating altogether because there is no debate to be had with someone whose feelings are more real to them than facts. I want you to really let this next part sink in because it's the core of everything. Female nature, left unchecked, is chaos seeking a container. It is emotion seeking a target. It is boredom disguised as righteous indignation. It is the constant testing of boundaries to see how far the leash stretches before someone yanks it back. And for thousands of years, society provided that container through religion, tradition, family structure, and clear consequences. Then we spent 50 years dismantling every single one of those containers while telling women they were oppressed by them, and now we're shocked that the chaos is spilling everywhere. Men see it clearly now. They see that the same woman who says she's strong and independent will call the police the moment she feels scared. The same woman who says she doesn't need a man will cry on TikTok when the bills come due. The same woman who says all men are trash spent years rejecting good men for excitement and now wonders why the excitement never committed. The same woman who says she can have it all is discovering that having it all means doing it all. And doing it all alone is exhausting when there's no one left willing to carry half the load for free. And the most ruthless red pill of all is this: none of this is new. None of it. Every single thing men are waking up to today was written about by Roman philosophers 2,000 years ago who watched their own society collapse under the exact same dynamics. The names change, the technology changes, the hashtags change, but female nature doesn't change and male nature doesn't change. The only thing that changed was the guardrails came off. And now we're watching the predictable results in real time. So when you see another crying video, understand what you're really watching. You're watching the death rattle of a social order that only worked when men agreed to participate in their own exploitation. You're watching women discover that freedom without responsibility is just slow motion disaster. You're watching the moment when millions of men looked at the contract they were offered, read the fine print, and quietly tore it up. And the most beautiful part, the part that should make every man watching this feel 10 feet tall, is that there is nothing anyone can do to stop it now. They can cry, they can shame, they can legislate, they can threaten, they can promise the world, but the genie is out of the bottle and he's not going back in. Men have tasted peace, real peace, the kind of peace that comes when your phone doesn't buzz with drama, when your bank account grows instead of disappears, when your sleep isn't interrupted by arguments about nothing, when your purpose is yours and yours alone. That peace is addictive. That peace is permanent. And once a man has it, he will move mountains to keep it. He will let the entire world burn before he gives it up again. The tears you see on those screens are not about rent being $800 too high this month. They are about the sudden, terrifying realization that the old leverage is gone forever. For decades, the leverage was simple: a man's instinct to protect, to provide, to fix, to rescue was weaponized against him. All a woman had to do was trigger that instinct, cry the right tear, say the right sentence about how no one cares about her, and the average man would come running with his wallet open and his boundaries closed. That trigger still fires in men. Biology does not update its firmware overnight, but now the signal hits a firewall that was not there 10 years ago. The instinct fires, the man feels the pull, and then a quiet voice in his head, forged in 1,000 late night forums, 1,000 divorce horror stories, 1,000 moments of clarity, says very calmly, "Not my circus, not my monkeys." And just like that, the spell is broken. The tear falls on deaf ears. The plea echoes into an empty room. The leverage is gone, and nothing in the female arsenal replaces it. Think about how insane that is when you really zoom out and look at it from a distance. An entire gender spent half a century being told they were oppressed by the very men who were voluntarily carrying 90% of the load. And instead of gratitude, they weaponized resentment. They burned the bridge while they were still standing on it, convinced the men would rebuild it faster than they could burn it, because that is what men had always done. But this time, the men looked at the flames, looked at each other, shrugged, and walked downriver to build a new bridge for themselves only. No announcement, no press conference, just millions of quiet decisions that added up to the biggest unspoken revolution in human history. And now the bridge burners are standing on the smoldering remains, screaming across the water, asking why no one is coming to get them. They post videos with captions like, "I guess chivalry really is dead," while completely missing the point that chivalry was never supposed to be suicide. Chivalry was an exchange: loyalty for protection, respect for provision, fidelity for sacrifice. When one side of the exchange unilaterally declares the contract void but still demands the benefits, eventually the other side stops showing up. That is not complicated. That is basic economics. You do not get to fire your security team and then act confused when no one answers the alarm. Let me paint you a picture that will live in your head forever. Imagine a man, 35 years old, decent job, no criminal record, works out, has his passport, speaks 2 languages, owns a paid off truck, and has 6 figures in crypto. 5 years ago, that man was on every dating app, paying for every dinner, texting good morning, beautiful every day, planning expensive dates, listening to problems that were never his, apologizing for things he never did, all to maybe get a crumb of affection and the privilege of calling someone girlfriend for 6 months before she decided she needed to find herself in another man's bed. That same man today wakes up alone, makes a protein shake, hits the gym, records a YouTube video, or writes code, or flips a property, or does whatever he wants with his day, eats ribeye he grilled himself, plays PlayStation, his boys online, and goes to sleep at 10 without a single argument about why he did not like her Instagram story fast enough. That man is not angry anymore. He is not bitter. He is not screaming on the internet. He is calm. He is wealthy in time, in money, in energy, and in peace. And there is not a woman alive who can offer him anything worth more than what he already has. That is the new standard model, and it is replicating faster than any virus the world has ever seen. Every time another man watches one of those crying videos and feels nothing but mild curiosity, another soldier joins the ranks. Every time a man chooses the gym over a fourth date with someone who says she is not ready for anything serious but still expects 5-star treatment, the movement grows. Every time a man books a flight to Thailand or Colombia or Poland with his boys, instead of blowing 3 grand on a birthday trip for a girl who will break up with him 2 weeks later, the old world dies a little more. And the best part, the part that makes me want to stand up and cheer every single time I say it, is that this is not a coordinated attack. There is no leader, there is no headquarters, there is no manifesto that everyone agreed on. It is just millions of individual men in their own apartments, in their own cities, all hitting the exact same breaking point within a 5-year window and all coming to the exact same conclusion: I would rather be alone than be used. That organic, decentralized, leaderless emergence is exactly why it is unstoppable. You cannot negotiate with it. You cannot shame it. You cannot cancel it. You cannot arrest it. It is not a movement you can infiltrate. It is a phase change. Ice does not negotiate with the sun about whether or not it should melt. It just melts. Women feel it, even if they cannot articulate it. That is why the crying videos are getting more desperate, more frequent, more theatrical. That is why the articles asking, where have all the good men gone, went from one every few months to three a week. That is why dating apps are hemorrhaging male users while female users keep swiping and wondering why their phone stopped buzzing. That is why the term passport bro went from obscure joke to mainstream panic trigger in less than 2 years. They feel the ground shifting under their feet and they have no idea how to make it stop because for the first time in their lives, the old tools do not work. Shaming does not work on men who do not care about your opinion. Guilt does not work on men who no longer accept responsibility for your happiness. Promises do not work on men who have heard every promise before and watched every promise turn to dust. So they cry. And the crying is supposed to activate the rescue instinct. It always has. But the rescue instinct now comes with a background check that runs in the back of every man's mind. What happens if I step in? Will I be rewarded or will I be punished? Will gratitude follow or will resentment follow? Will loyalty follow or will law enforcement follow? Will peace follow or will I be sleeping on the couch for the next decade because her feelings changed again? And the answer, based on everything men have seen with their own eyes, is always the same. The risk is not worth the reward. So the man keeps scrolling. That is the moment the old world ended. Not with a bang, not with a war, not with a revolution in the streets. It ended the moment the average man decided his peace was worth more than your tears. And once that decision is made at scale, there is no reset button. I want you to think about your grandfather for a second. Think about the world he lived in. He married one woman, probably young, probably the only woman he ever slept with, worked one job for 40 years, came home to dinner on the table, raised kids who respected him, and died knowing he left something behind. That world is gone. It is not coming back. It died the day no fault divorce became law, accelerated the day birth control separated sex from consequence, and was buried the day social media gave every woman 1,000 backup options in her pocket at all times. The contract that made that world possible was torn up, burned, and the ashes were scattered on it on Instagram stories. And for a long time, men kept showing up anyway, because that is what men do. We keep showing up long after the game has been rigged, long after the rules have been changed, long after everyone else has quit. But eventually, even the most stubborn ox figures out that the cart is on fire and the destination was never real to begin with. So here we are. The cart is burned. The field is empty. And men are walking away in every direction, building new lives that do not require anyone's permission, anyone's approval, or anyone's presence. Some are stacking money and traveling the world. Some are homesteading in the mountains. Some are building businesses with their brothers. Some are just going to work, hitting the gym, and enjoying the silence. But none of them, not a single one, is looking over his shoulder wondering if he made the wrong choice. That certainty, that rock solid conviction that the best is yet to come, is what separates this moment from every other collapse in history. Every empire that ever fell had men fighting to the last bullet to protect women and children who already hated them. Rome burned while men still stood on the walls. This time, the men saw the fire coming, grabbed what mattered, and left the city to the flames. And the women who spent years cheering as the walls were torn down are now standing in the ashes, recording reaction videos, asking why no one warned them. We warned you. For years, we warned you. The manosphere was screaming from the rooftops while you called us bitter, toxic, and insecure. We told you the contract only works if both sides honor it. We told you freedom for women meant responsibility for women. We told you the ride would end the day men decided the juice was not worth the squeeze. You laughed. You mocked. You made memes. You said you would rather talk to your dog than a red pill man. Fine. Talk to the dog. The men are busy. And that busyness is what seals it, because the men who walk away do not sit around hating women. That is what most people still do not understand. This is not an incel temper tantrum. This is not a coordinated strike. This is millions of men discovering that life is better, richer, freer, and happier when the entire focus is on building instead of begging, on lifting instead of simping, on legacy instead of likes. The energy that used to be poured into chasing validation from women who weaponized attention is now being poured into bank accounts, deadlift PRs, passport stamps, business launches, and brotherhoods that actually show up when you call. That energy shift is permanent. You do not go back to leaking your life force into a black hole once you have felt what it is like to have it all directed toward your own mission. You do not trade freedom for chains a second time. Once you have tasted what real freedom feels like, you do not volunteer to return to the plantation once you have built your own house on your own land. So the crying will continue. The articles will keep coming. The think pieces will multiply. The laws will probably get more desperate. The shaming language will get louder and more creative. None of it will matter. The tide does not negotiate with the beach. The sun does not argue with the ice. And men who have found peace do not trade it for drama at any price. The most terrifying sound in the world right now is not gunfire. It is not an explosion. It is the silence on the other side of a woman's phone when she finally texts the man she treated like an option for 3 years straight. She hits send on the "Hey stranger, been thinking about you" message, the one that used to bring him running within minutes, and then the minutes stretch into hours, the hours stretch into days, and the read receipt never comes. That silence is the sound of absolute power shifting hands for the first time in 50 years. And it is happening in millions of inboxes every single week. That silence is the sound of consequences arriving exactly on schedule, delivered by men who finally learn to stop hitting snooze on their self respect. Because here is the part nobody wants to say out loud: women never actually believed men would walk away. Not really. Deep down, in the place where biology and culture overlap, they were certain that male thirst, male protectiveness, male willingness to trade blood for approval would always override male logic. They were told from childhood that men are simple, predictable machines that run on attention and intimacy. And if you just turn the right dials, they will do anything, pay anything, forgive anything, endure anything. That belief was the foundation of the entire post 1960s social arrangement. Remove the certainty that men will eventually cave, and the whole tower falls. And right now, the tower is not just falling, it is imploding in slow motion while everyone pretends not to notice the dust cloud. Let me tell you a story that happened last week to a friend of mine, because stories hit harder than statistics. 38 years old, software engineer, makes low six figures, divorced 5 years ago, no kids, lives in a paid off condo downtown. For years after the divorce, he did what society told him to do: date again, level up, be vulnerable, work on himself, get therapy, the whole script. He dated women in their late 20s and early 30s who all said the same things. I am focused on my career right now. I love to travel. My dog is my whole world. I am not looking for anything serious, but if the right person comes along, maybe. Translation: keep paying for everything while I decide if you are good enough to lock down before my fertility window closes. He paid for Michelin starred restaurants, international trips, concerts, Ubers, all of it. And every single one of them eventually vanished with some version of, I'm just not in a place for a relationship right now. Babe, but you're such an amazing guy. Last year, he stopped cold, deleted the apps, sold the sports car he bought to impress women who never cared, started training jujitsu, put the date money into Bitcoin and a rental property, and started saying no to anything that did not directly improve his life. 6 months ago, one of the women from the old days, the one who ghosted him after a month-long trip to Greece he paid for, slid into his DMs with the classic, "Hey, how have you been?" line. He left her on red. 3 days later, she sent a novel about how she has grown so much and realizes what an amazing connection they had. He still did not reply. 2 weeks after that, she posted a tearful TikTok about how all the good men are taken or gay and dating is impossible for a strong, independent woman. My friend screenshotted it, sent it to the group chat, and we all laughed because the math is just too perfect. That is not one story. That is every story now. Multiply that by 100,000, and you start to see the scale we are actually dealing with. The women who spent the last decade treating men like free Uber Eats and emotional support are waking up to discover the delivery app is permanently offline. And the customer service number just plays a message that says, "Have you tried building something worth keeping?" And the panic is setting in at every level. You can see it in the way the messaging has shifted in the last 18 months. First, it was, "Where are all the good men?" Then it was, "Men are afraid of strong women." Then it was, "Men have been ruined by porn and video games." Now we are at, "Maybe we went too far with the independence thing and we actually need each other." The narrative is doing backflips, trying to find a way to put the genie back in the bottle without ever admitting the genie was let out on purpose. But the genie is bench pressing 405, owns property in 3 countries, and has no interest in returning to a lamp that smells like drama and ultimatums. Here is the cold, brutal mathematical reality that no one on the blue pill side wants to look at directly. The sexual marketplace is supply and demand like any other market. For decades, the demand side, men, vastly outnumbered the available supply of traditionally feminine, loyal, pleasant, low body count women who actually wanted marriage and children. That imbalance gave women enormous pricing power. They could demand unlimited attention, resources, commitment, and emotional labor while offering almost nothing concrete in return because there was always another man waiting to outbid the last one. Then something changed. The supply of high value men did not decrease, it skyrocketed. Men got richer, fitter, more skilled, more traveled, more emotionally stable, more interesting, and simultaneously opted out of the market entirely. The supply of desirable men went up while the demand, what men actively participating, collapsed. Basic economics says price crashes when supply explodes and demand vanishes. That crash is happening right now in real time. And the tears on TikTok are the sound of sellers realizing their inventory is suddenly worth a fraction of what it was 18 months ago. And the best part is that the men driving this crash are not doing it out of spite. That is what people still get wrong. They think this is revenge. It is not revenge. Revenge would require emotional investment. This is closer to a company pulling out of a country that nationalized all their factories. You do not burn the factories down on your way out. You just stop investing, stop maintaining, stop showing up, and let the infrastructure collapse on its own. Men are not salting the earth. They are simply refusing to keep watering a crop that was never theirs to harvest. Look at the dating app data if you want to see this in black and white. On Tinder, the top 10% of men still get 80% of the likes. But the overall swipe activity from men has plummeted year over year. Men are still there, still desirable, still in the top tier, but they are swiping less, matching less, messaging less, and meeting in person almost never. Why would you spend 3 hours and $200 taking a stranger to dinner when you already know the script by heart? She will order the most expensive thing on the menu, talk about her ex the whole time, expect you to pay, text her friends from the bathroom, and then tell you on the walk to the car that she is just not feeling a spark, but you're such a great guy. Hard pass. The ROI on that transaction is worse than gambling on meme coins at 3 a.m. So men stopped gambling. They took their money, their time, their attention, their energy, and they invested it where the returns are guaranteed themselves. And the returns have been obscene. Men in their 30s are in the best shape of their lives, making the most money of their lives, traveling to more countries than ever before, building brotherhoods that actually last, and reporting happiness levels that psychologists cannot explain under the old models. The old model said men need women to be happy. The new model says men need purpose, brotherhood, and peace, and everything else is optional. That is the part that keeps the gatekeepers up at night. Because if men are happier single than they ever were in relationships, the entire justification for the last 50 years of social engineering collapses. If men do not actually need women to be complete, then all the shaming, all the laws, all the cultural pressure, all the real men do X propaganda loses its teeth. You can call a man a loser for not having a girlfriend, but when that man is shredded, debt free, well traveled, and sleeps like a baby every night, the word loser starts to sound like a comedy routine. And the cope is getting more desperate by the day. We went from you can't get laid to you're afraid of independent women to you're emotionally immature to you have an avoidant attachment style to now the latest one that you're addicted to peace. Think about that phrase for a second, addicted to peace. They are literally trying to pathologize the absence of chaos. They are telling men that preferring a quiet life without drama is a character flaw that needs therapy. That is how far the goalposts have moved. Wanting to come home to silence instead of screaming is now a mental health issue. Wanting to keep the money you earned instead of funding someone else's lifestyle is now a disorder. The mental gymnastics are Olympic gold medal level, and still the men keep walking. I want you to picture something that will stay with you forever. Picture a timeline where this never gets fixed. Not in 5 years, not in 10, not ever. Picture a world where the majority of men between 25 and 45 are single, childless, debt free, physically elite, financially secure, and completely at peace with that reality. Picture birth rates collapsing to Japanese levels across the West. Picture entire industries, SI, wedding industry, divorce industry, couples therapy, luxury handbags, cosmetic procedures, OnlyFans, shrinking year after year because the primary revenue source, male disposable income funneled through women, has dried up. Picture governments panicking and introducing bachelor taxes, mandatory dating apps, conscription for marriage, whatever desperate measures dying empires always try when the population stops reproducing. Picture all of that happening while the men themselves are the happiest, healthiest, and wealthiest generation of men who ever lived. That timeline is not science fiction. That timeline is the default trajectory we are on right now, unless something fundamental changes. And the only thing that could change it is if women en masse decided to offer men a deal so good that walking away no longer makes sense. But that would require admitting the last 50 years were a mistake, dismantling the legal and cultural bias overnight, and offering men something close to the 1950s deal again: loyalty, peace, respect, and children without the 1950s restrictions. And that will never happen because the same forces that created this mess still control the narrative, the courts, the universities, and the media. So the trajectory stays locked in. The revolution has no flag, no headquarters, no official start date, yet every single day it recruits another 10,000 men who finally see the matrix code for what it is. They do not need to be convinced anymore. They just need to be shown the exit door once, and they sprint through it like the building is on fire. The recruitment video is not a speech. It is a 30-second clip of a woman on TikTok crying about rent while the caption reads, "I don't know why men won't help anymore." That clip does more to red pill a man than 10 years of manosphere lectures ever could. It is the perfect demonstration of cause and effect playing out in real time. The man watches, remembers every dollar he ever spent trying to be good enough, remembers every apology he gave for crimes he never committed, remembers every night he fell asleep to silent resentment, and in that moment, the last thread of blue pill illusion snaps. He does not get angry, he gets quiet. And quiet men are the most dangerous men on earth. That quiet is spreading faster than any ideology ever has because it is not an ideology, it is a survival adaptation. Evolution does not care about your feelings, your politics, or your TikTok aesthetics. Evolution rewards the organism that figures out which behaviors lead to more resources, more peace, and more genetic success. For 50 years, the male strategy of provide unconditionally, protect unconditionally, absorb punishment unconditionally produced worse outcomes with every passing decade. Men adapted, not through meetings or manifestos, but through the same brutal Darwinian process that turned wolves into dogs and then back into wolves when the food bowls stopped showing up. The modern male wolf is lean, fast, debt free, passport ready, and completely uninterested in returning to a kennel that starved him while telling him he was the problem. And here's where it gets beautiful: the adaptation is now self reinforcing. Every man who walks away and thrives becomes living proof to every other man that the old path was a trap. 10 years ago, the guy who said, "I'm done dating, I'm focusing on me," was called a loser by his friends and family. Today, the same guy posts a photo from Medellin with three other jacked, happy dudes, and the group chat blows up with, "Bro, how do I do that?" The social proof flipped completely in less than a decade. The guy who is married with three kids and a mortgage is now the one getting quiet pity glances at the barbecue, while the single dude with the rental properties and the deadlift PR gets asked for advice. That inversion is permanent. You do not unflip social proof once the new model is visibly winning on every metric that actually matters: money, health, happiness, freedom, sleep quality, testosterone levels, and life expectancy. Women feel this inversion in their bones, even when they cannot admit it out loud. That is why the tone of the crying videos has shifted from accusatory to bargaining in the last 12 months. It used to be, "Men are trash. Where are the real men?" Now it is, "I promise I'll cook and clean and submit if a good man just gives me a chance." The marketplace spoke. The price of entry just went from tolerate endless nonsense while funding my lifestyle to bring traditional value or enjoy the cats. And the vast majority of modern women are discovering they have no idea how to bring traditional value because no one ever required it of them. They spent their teens and 20s optimizing for attention, not partnership. They built resumes full of follower counts and travel photos, not homemaking skills, emotional stability, or fertility preservation. And now the buyers have left the market entirely, leaving sellers holding assets that are depreciating faster than a 2021 Tesla in a salt mine. The cope mechanisms are evolving in real time to try to process this new reality. First, it was denial. They're all secretly gay or addicted to porn. Then anger. These men are emotional infants who can't handle a strong woman. Then bargaining. "Okay, fine. I'll learn to cook steak if you just come back." Depression is the phase we are in right now. Watch the mental health statistics for single women under 40, and you will see numbers that look like a war zone. Acceptance is nowhere in sight because acceptance would require admitting that the ideology they were sold was not empowerment, it was sabotage dressed up as liberation. And admitting that would collapse the entire identity structure most of them have spent 2 decades building. Meanwhile, the men who walked away are not waiting for acceptance. They are too busy living. They are in Dubai for the weekend, then back to the home gym on Monday. They are closing real estate deals with money they used to spend on bottle service and birthday trips. They are mentoring younger men who are still stuck in the blue pill fog. They are building businesses that do not require anyone's emotional labor but their own. They are becoming the uncles and big brothers that the next generation desperately needs because fathers are now optional and usually absent. They are turning the energy that used to be drained by drama into compound interest, literal and figurative. And the compound interest is the part nobody saw coming. A man who redirects even half the resources he used to spend on women back into himself for 10 years ends up so far ahead that the gap becomes unclosable. 10 years of no child support, no alimony, no wedding, no engagement ring, no funding her shopping addiction, no couples therapy, no, I need you to be more emotionally available shopping sprees. That is millions of dollars and millions of hours that stay in his pocket. Compound that at the average stock market return, and you get a man who is financially free before 45. Compound that in the gym, and you get a man who looks and feels better at 45 than he did at 25. Compound that in skills, and you get a man who can work from anywhere, speak multiple languages, and has a network of brothers across 5 continents. That man is not negotiating with tears. That man is negotiating with God about how many more years he gets to enjoy this paradise he built out of the ashes of the old contract. The government notices, the think tanks notice, the economists notice. Birth rates at 1.3 and falling in every Western country are not a blip, they are a 5 alarm fire. Politicians are starting to whisper about incentives for marriage, tax breaks for children, maybe even rolling back no fault divorce in a decade when the voting demographics shift hard enough. None of it will matter. You do not fix a refusal to participate by making participation slightly less punitive. You fix it by restoring the original deal or offering a new deal so good that men line up again. And the original deal required cultural enforcement mechanisms that were deliberately destroyed and can never be rebuilt in a post internet, post sexual revolution world. The New Deal would require women to offer something they have spent 2 generations being told they are too precious to offer: genuine respect, loyalty, peace, and submission to male leadership in exchange for protection and provision. That deal is about as likely as turning the Titanic around after the iceberg. So the incentives will fail, the laws will fail, the shaming will fail, the crying will fail, and the collapse will continue exactly on schedule. Entire generations of women will age out of the market having never experienced a stable, long term relationship because the men who could have provided it chose peace instead. Entire generations of men will die old and happy, surrounded by brothers, money, and memories instead of regret, resentment, and restraining orders. The species will survive because humans always find a way. But the comfortable Western middle class nuclear family model that everyone still pretends is the default setting is already dead. It died the day the risk reward ratio for men crossed into negative territory and enough men noticed to make the walkaway strategy the dominant one. And here we are, standing in the wreckage of that old model, watching the new one rise faster than anyone thought possible. The new model has no name yet, but it has clear rules. Your peace is non negotiable. Your resources are yours until someone earns them. Your attention is a privilege, not a utility. Your frame is unbreakable. Your purpose is bigger than any one person. Your brotherhood is iron. Your legacy is what you build, not what you are given. That model is spreading because it works. It produces happier, healthier, wealthier men than any model in recorded history. And once enough men are living proof that it works, the recruitment never stops. The women who figure it out early, the ones who are 18 or 20 right now and watching their future play out on TikTok in real time, those women still have a narrow window. They can opt out of the collapsing system, learn the old skills, keep their body count low, stay off the apps, find a man before the wall hits, and lock in the last generation of men who still believe in the traditional deal. A few of them will, most will not, because the culture is still telling them they have all the time in the world and that any man who asks for commitment before 30 is controlling. By the time they realize the culture lied, the window will be closed, and the price will be loneliness measured in decades. That is not cruelty, that is consequence. Consequences are the only teacher that never lies. And the greatest consequence of all is this: freedom is not free, someone always pays. For 50 years, men paid the price of women's freedom with their labor, their sanity, their future, and their lives. The bill was never going to be paid forever. The men finally stopped paying, and now the ones who enjoyed the freedom are discovering what it actually costs when the voluntary subsidies dry up. And so when you see another crying video, do not laugh, do not rage, do not argue, just nod, close the app, and go back to building. Every rep, every dollar, every skill, every brother you add to your circle is another brick in the fortress that can never be taken from you. The storm is here. The old world is burning. The new world belongs to the men who are willing to walk through the fire to get to the other side. The fortress is no longer a metaphor. It is real. It has steel plates and a squat rack in the garage. It has a crypto wallet with a 12-word seed phrase tattooed on the inside of a man's mind. It has a passport with more stamps than regrets. It has a circle of brothers who would cross continents if one text says, I need you. It has a bank account that grows while its owner sleeps. It has silence at 10 p.m. instead of interrogation. It has steak on the grill and no one complaining that red meat is toxic. It has sunlight on a balcony in a country where no one knows your ex's name. That fortress is being built, one disciplined day at a time, by millions of men who finally understood that the best revenge is a life so good that the past cannot even recognize you. And the blueprint for that fortress is brutally simple. It is the same set of habits repeated until they become identity. Wake up at 5, drink water, train hard, eat meat, read books that make you dangerous, work on the business or the skill that pays you in freedom, stack sats, lift your brothers, delete anything and anyone that subtracts from your peace, repeat tomorrow. There is no secret. There is no cheat code. There is only relentless consistency in the direction of your own self respect. Do that for 2 years and you become unrecognizable. Do it for 5 and you become untouchable. Do it for 10 and you become the final boss of your own bloodline. That is the daily operating system of the new man. No notifications from dating apps, no good morning text to someone who does not deserve them. No scrolling Instagram wondering why her vacation looks happier than your life. Just the clean, sharp rhythm of a man who finally owns his time, his energy, and his future. The world will call it selfish. Good. Selfish is the upgrade from self sacrifice. Selfish is the antibody that killed the parasite. Selfish is the reason he will still be deadlifting heavy plates at 60 while the guy who manned up and married the wrong woman is on his third back surgery and second bankruptcy. The mindset that powers this life is even simpler than the habits. It can be boiled down to 4 sentences that every man who made it to the other side will tell you are non negotiable. First, my peace is more valuable than your approval. Second, my resources are earned by me and spent only on what serves me or the people I choose. Third, my attention is a currency, and I no longer invest it where there is no return. Fourth, my frame is the only reality I live in. Everything else is noise. And memorize those 4 lines. Tattoo them on the inside of your eyelids if you have to. They are the operating code of the new era. Every decision runs through that filter, and anything that fails the test gets deleted without ceremony. That is how a man goes from miserable and broke at 30 to calm and wealthy at 40. That is how a man goes from arguing about whose turn it is to take the trash out to never having to discuss trash with anyone ever again. That is how a man goes from dreading the sound of his own front door to greeting every sunrise like it owes him money. And once a critical mass of men live that code, the game changes forever. Cities become optional. Marriage becomes a relic. Fatherhood becomes a conscious choice instead of an accident. Governments become background noise. Social media becomes a comedy channel instead of a weapon. Religion becomes personal instead of obligatory. The entire scaffolding that kept men in line for centuries loses its grip because the leverage is gone. You cannot threaten a man with loneliness when he prefers his own company. You cannot threaten a man with poverty when he already lives below his means. You cannot threaten a man with shame when he no longer cares what strangers think of him. That is the end game. A world full of men who cannot be controlled because they no longer need anything the system used to provide through women. No validation, no intimacy, no status, no legacy, nothing that cannot be obtained better, cheaper, and with less risk outside the old contract. When that day comes, and it is coming faster than any expert predicted, the last excuses die. There will be no more articles about where the good men went because everyone will know exactly where they went. They went to the gym, to the bank, to the airport, to the mountaintop, to anywhere that peace is for sale and drama is banned at the door. The women who adapt will be few, but they will thrive. They will be the quiet ones who never posted thirst traps, who learned to cook before they learned to contour, who understood that respect is the price of protection and paid it gladly. They will marry young, stay married, raise strong sons and feminine daughters, and they will look at their sisters on TikTok with the same mixture of pity and confusion that a farmer feels watching someone try to pay for groceries with monopoly money. The rest will inherit the world they demanded, loud, lonely, expensive, and completely devoid of the men they spent years telling the world they never needed. And the men? The men will keep building. They will keep lifting. They will keep stacking. They will keep walking. Some will choose to let a worthy woman into the fortress and build a new version of the old dream on their own terms. Most will not. Either way, the outcome is the same. A generation of men who will die old, strong, wealthy, and surrounded by brothers who showed up when it mattered. Their gravestones will not say, "He provided for people who hated him." They will say nothing at all, because real legends do not need words carved in stone. They leave the evidence in the lives they changed and the empires they built while everyone else was busy arguing about feelings. That is the future we are walking into, one disciplined day at a time. That is the legacy of every man who closed the app, deleted the contacts, canceled the dates, and chose himself when the world told him he was worthless without a woman to validate him. That is the gift we are giving to every boy being born right now. A world where being a man no longer means being a utility, where strength is celebrated instead of punished, where peace is the default setting instead of the rare exception. So when you see the tears, when you hear the pleas, when you watch another empire crumble in real time, do not flinch. Do not gloat. Do not debate. Just smile, nod, and keep walking. The road is long, the load is light, and the destination is a life so good that history will remember this moment as the day men stopped apologizing for winning. Now, I want to hear from you. What did you think about everything we just went through? Do you agree? Do you see it playing out in your own city, your own life, your own circle? Drop your thoughts in the comments because the conversation is bigger than any one video. Like the video, if it hit hard, don't forget to subscribe for more unfiltered truth. And if it resonated, share it with every man who still needs to hear that he is not crazy for choosing peace. And just remember, all roads lead to MWA, men walking away. Cheers.
Nothing says you care like crypto. Nothing can compare. Nothing says you care like crypto. Oh, nothing can compare to crypto.